bent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We are back on our normal morning schedule. I know yesterday we recorded in the afternoon, but we are back. It is nice, bright and early, 4 a.m. We're a few minutes late, but you know, it is what it is. So, we have to start here, in my opinion, because this is what we do with every NBA champion, or really any champion of a sport ever, right? Which is that immediate first couple days, first week, we want to talk about them in this very hyperbole sense. Are they the greatest team ever? Is this the greatest season ever? Is this the greatest whatever? It's just something is always got to be the greatest, the biggest, the best. We very rarely just, take the season that we just saw and just go, you know what? Let's just appreciate the moment. We got to up it. We have to make it seem like it's the biggest event to ever happen of all time, right? So the Thunder, who every advanced metric is going to tell you this is one of the greatest seasons, one of the greatest teams ever, discussed yesterday on Hard Right. I don't believe people actually view this team this way, even though all the numbers and all the metrics are going to say this is one of the most dominant teams of all time. Now, in the NFL, we have a bunch of, because of the nature of winning Super Bowls, there's only a handful of guys who have ever won multiple. We champion individual seasons a lot more. The Saints, ask a Saints fan. They know the year they won the Super Bowl, and that team is special to them the one year they won. Jrue was there for over a decade, but that Super Bowl team, excuse me, that's special to them, right? You go look at the Eagles before they won this last Super Bowl. That Nick Foles-led team, the year Carson Wentz almost won MVP, that's a special team. It's a one-off. It gets a little more cloudy with the guys who have won multiple. Manning, take your 2 years, whichever Super Bowl you want to think. Brady, obviously, there's 7 of them. Montana, there's 4 teams you could choose from. But we value the one-off more in the NFL, just because there's only a handful of guys who ever won more. Same in Major League Baseball. I feel like there is one-off champions. Royals fans remember their World Series. It's a very near and dear team. It's a one-off team, only won one title, but it means more in these other sports. And those teams can also be elevated. Go back to the NFL. The 85 Bears are celebrated across the sport. It's a one-off championship. Team only won one title. Walter Payton, the fridge, the great defense, all that stuff. We don't do that in the NBA nearly the same. I want to say the 83 Sixers are the one exception, and maybe the 04 Pistons, as far as teams that we champion as a one-off. And in case of the 04 Pistons, we really champion them because of the opponent, not because of what they did. We don't go, oh my gosh, yes, we respect that team. It's amazing what they did, but it's because of who they beat, Kobe and Shaq, that we elevated them in terms of one-off champion. So the Thunder, even though all the metrics say this is one of the greatest seasons ever, this is one of the greatest teams ever, we're not really going to put them in the class of greatest teams ever unless you win multiple. And this is just the reality of the NBA. The greatest teams in NBA history, you have the Showtime Lakers, you got Jordan's Bulls, you got Kobe Shaq Lakers. I think the Heatles should be in there, especially the team that won 27 straight games. I think the KD Steph Warriors are obviously in there. But what do all those teams have in common? They won multiple titles. They weren't really considered greatest team ever until they started becoming a dynasty and started stacking multiple championships. Because ask yourself as a fan, what's the greatest Lakers team ever? What individual year are you going to say, you know what? That's the year. Is it the 86 Lakers? Is it the 83 Lakers? Is it the 92 Bulls? Is it the 97 Bulls? Is it the 01 Lakers, the 02 Lakers? Is it the 2012 Heat, or is it the 2013 Heat? Like, is it the 2017 Warriors? Like, ask yourself, we don't really, in the NBA, isolate an individual season and say, that's the greatest. They're the best. We don't even start putting you in that conversation until you've won multiple championships. Until you have basically already become a dynasty. That's when we put you in the consideration of, okay, you're one of the greatest teams ever. That's when we start to really, really acknowledge you. So until you get to that point, Oklahoma City, because we're not, and this is the reality, and it sounds crazy to think of, we're not going to look back in 10 to 15 years if this team only wins a title, because I don't believe, with all due respect, again, to SGA, I don't think he is that level of player. And this is, again, it's so hard when you try to do this. The top 10 only can have 10 guys, right? The top 20 can only have 20 guys. So when you start saying, well, I don't think he's that player, when you're comparing him to a guy that you believe is a top 15, top 20 player of all time, it's like, it's not really a dig. We just only have, there's just only 10 spots available. There's only 20 spots available. So SGA to me is not in the consideration yet of where I think Jokic and Giannis have put themselves, which is those guys are top 20 consideration guys. So we're going to maybe look back on their teams only in the sense of, well, we felt like they should have won more. Obviously with LeBron, Kobe, Durant, like those guys, they were expected to win multiple championships. I don't think that's the expectation for SGA as things currently stand. So if you go and look at this team, I think it's going to be, you know, Kawhi's story in 2019 was as incredible as you can do it. I don't think we really think about the 2019 Raptors. I think the Warriors, their most one-off title is that last title of their championship, but because it's attached to a dynasty, that's the only reason we're really going to go back and think of them. So the Thunder had an amazing season, again, by every metric. I don't believe, and I said this yesterday, I don't believe because of how we view SGA, we don't view him the same way as some of these other guys, that there's not this expectation to continue winning, and that's why we don't feel like it's most dominant. But there's also the fact of we never give one-off teams in the NBA the respect of, are you in consideration for the greatest team ever? We also, and we're going to do this one day during the offseason, we're going to really break down, like, who is the best one-off champions, because we're now in this era, might do this next week even, the era of one-off 7 consecutive different champions. Do it next week where we talk about, we're ranking who is the best one-off champion of all time. A little fun exercise for you. But again, shout out to the Thunder. They deserve all the success in the world. They deserve all the praise in the world. But to really elevate them into that next tier, the way it's always worked in the NBA is you're going to have to win multiple. It's just the reality of it. Now to the scarier side of basketball. So in Major League Baseball, Tommy John surgery is just kind of expected at this point, unfortunately. As guys started to throw harder, as guys started to throw more, start throwing from a younger age, elbows just give out. It's the reality of the human body. Most elite level athletes, as great of shape as they are in, playing these sports at the highest level, require the kind of motion that the human body just doesn't want to deal with, right? I'm 6'9". There's things I have to be more considerate of versus someone who's only 6 feet tall, someone who's 5'10", 5'11", and that is my joints and my back. Those are just things that are very common to go out on tall people, because being tall, especially extremely tall, is just not natural. It's not. The human body was not meant to be this tall, this big, and move around at all. And I'm not even playing high-end athletics, or high-end sports. So in baseball, it's just ingrained into the culture and almost ingrained into the fabric of team construction that, hey, we're going to lose somebody this year to Tommy John surgery because the human body's not meant to put that much torque on its elbow and its shoulder to throw 93, 95, 100 plus miles an hour. And so when we see Tommy John now, as unfortunate as it is, and I don't want to put this on anyone's name, if so-and-so goes out with Tommy John surgery, there's not a whole lot of shock. There's some disappointment from the individual fan base, but there's not a whole lot of shock. And baseball has found a way to endure and accept the reality of more hard-throwing pitchers, more Tommy John surgeries, et cetera, et cetera. Well, basketball is starting to have a really bad trend with Achilles. And that is because, and I'm not a doctor, but the simplest way of putting it, obviously what we just saw with Tyrese Halliburton in the finals, what we saw with Dame, what we saw with Jason Tatum is as certain muscles in your body start to give out, they don't give out. You don't actually realize when they give out or the exact moment they give out. And because your body is designed in a way where if one muscle group isn't working correctly, another muscle group compensates for it, and you just go down the line until one gives out on itself, and that's what creates strains, and that's what creates tears in just simplest form. So as you have these guys, these guys that go on these deep playoff runs. Tatum, he played Eastern Conference NBA Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals, Olympics, playing back to defend his championship. His body, that's just a lot of basketball to be played, and eventually his hamstring and then his Achilles gave out. Now we don't have Jason Tatum next year. Dame Lillard, same thing, aggravated himself, really shouldn't have came back earlier, wasn't ready for it, boom, Achilles is gone. Similar to Kevin Durant with the Warriors. When he was hurt, probably shouldn't have been playing, not even saying probably shouldn't have been playing, should not have been playing, came back earlier than he wanted, and boom, Achilles out for a season. The end, and then obviously in the finals, Tyrese Halliburton, hamstring, wanted to play. I get it. I totally understand the decision from his part, but body couldn't handle it. Boom, Achilles, and here we are. And we're going to see how the NBA handles this. This isn't really a how they should or, oh, I have the answer for them. But the same way baseball has learned to just kind of accept and build around the fact of we're just going to lose X amount of high-end starting pitchers throughout the season and throughout seasons due to Tommy John, the NBA has an Achilles problem. And they've got to figure something about it because all those guys who just got hurt, the three current ones, Dame, Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, that's all in the East. The East right now is in a weird, I don't think it's as open as people think, but it's in a really weird state. Because what happens if Jalen Brunson or Donovan Mitchell get hurt? The Sixers are already hurt. Like the Cavs and the Knicks are the two should be favorites because of all these injuries. You know, not everyone's going to have LeBron or Giannis's body where it just seems like they just tank everything and they don't suffer these injuries. Not everybody does that because not everyone puts that level of time and dedication. And again, you're nitpicking here. These guys are all better athletes than me. These guys are all in way better shape than me. But the reality is, NBA, we got a problem. Like, we have a problem. And it's up to the NBA to learn how to fix it and learn how to deal with it. So, yeah, man. A lot more to talk about. This is now this new era of sports. It is the Caitlyn Clark time to shine. This is the WNBA's chance to take advantage of this news cycle, as well as another trade as a result of the second apron. Much more to talk about. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. You know when strength of schedule actually matters? Strength of schedule actually matters to have those conversations when it's too late. Strength of schedule matters when it's the middle of the season, game 9, game 10, game 11, and it's like, okay, you're down the stretch strength of schedule. That matters because that's how the teams are actually playing that year. You find out, are their rookies good? Are their free agents contributing to the team? Are they well coached? That's when those kind of conversations actually matter and start to show up and mean something. When you say, well, they were bad last year. Okay, they were bad last year. What does that have to do with this year? If you believe at all that the team had a competent offseason, front office, players just get better, the Chiefs, during this dynasty run, that's one of the things that's flipped for them. Their offense, 3 years ago, when Mahomes was the MVP, you would have went into the season going, man, we're playing against a top-flight offense. You know when strength of schedule actually matters? Strength of schedule actually matters to have those conversations. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. So, it's a new world, right? And the world is constantly changing, updating, etc. And so I saw a tweet yesterday that said, this is the worst time in the world for sports fans because we are obviously a full calendar cycle away from the NBA starting back up again. We are X amount of months from the NFL starting up again. And this tweet even included the NHL, and the NHL has had a rise in success and viewership and popularity. And it's like, we're X amount of days away from the NHL starting again. This is, and I've talked about baseball, and I'm going to get to baseball here in a second. This is baseball's time to shine. This is also the WNBA's time to shine. Look, however you want to feel about Caitlyn Clark, get over yourself. She's good for the sport. She just flat out is. She's not only good for the sport because of the popularity that she possesses, she is good for the sport because of how great and successful she is. Here's what you got to realize with the Caitlyn Clark situation is that she is already so good at basketball that it's just going to irritate some people. She is already one of the top 4 or 5 players in the league. She's already arguably the best shooter in the league, and she is one of the best passers in the league. And you need someone like her because she's only going to help stimulate the growth of this league and continuous development. And this is its time of the year where baseball stretches haven't truly happened yet. Like this end of June stretch, early July, before we really get into like the heat of baseball, which is more towards August. This is the WNBA's time to shine. We need to embrace the extra popularity that she's brought because there were other players coming down the stretch who are only going to ramp us up even more. Paige, who's already here as a rookie, see what she's doing. She just dropped 35 less than a week ago. Juju's going to be here in a couple years. That's going to take the league up another notch. The promise that she has, and there's a book, I wish I should have had her name already, but there's a book coming out, and it's how the W wasn't ready to handle how big of a success she was, and that's valid. But this is the time where you almost want her involved in some of these controversial things in terms of people shoving her, people being extra physical with her. That helps. Like, let's just be honest. And let's also stop acting like, maybe my favorite take around the Caitlyn Clark situation is stop acting like you need to defend her. You don't need to defend her. She's a great player. She likes to shit talk. She can handle her own. And let's not act like she's the first athlete that came in with a lot of potential and people talking about her and that turned people off or made them feel away. LeBron James was shit talked by his own teammates prior to being drafted when they just knew, oh, we're getting LeBron, and they're like, he's got to come in and prove it. And it's like, oh, well, that's LeBron. That's different. Okay. Can I interest you in Lonzo Ball, who his NBA debut, because of all the attention and talk around him and because of what his dad, Pat Bev, followed him full court the entirety of his debut and harassed the hell out of him. They were extra physical with him. This is not something Jordan, when he got into the league, he was getting knocked around. Like, it just happens. Because There's only so much of this money and this theoretical money pie that the WNBA can generate and can provide. There's only so much of it that everybody can get their hands on. And so if Caitlyn's going to take so much of it, yeah, these girls are going to fight for their life. They're going to knock her around. They're going to push her around. They're going to be extra physical. They're going to do all the things that we've seen them do with star players throughout the history of sports. It's a competitive environment. That's the reality of it. So when you see stuff like that happen, you don't need to defend her. Just enjoy it. And this is her time to take over. Again, if the WNBA is going to get to where it needs to get, this is your time of the year. This is where you dominate. Before baseball takes off, like really, really takes off, we start getting to like heated playoff matchups and heated playoff runs. The NBA is now officially over. There's no NFL to get in your way. Like, this is when the W has a chance to be its most dominant and its most impactful in terms of its viewership across the board. So shout out to Caitlyn, already a great player, obviously. Shout out to what she's going to be able to provide for the WNBA. And just stop defending her. She don't need it. It's okay, guys. I promise you. And that means it is, of course, time for What did they say? Why did they say that shit? Listen, man, I'm going to have a fun time with this. There's so many things that you can use when it comes to all the different things guys say on a day-to-day basis. I think Skip, we got to remove because Skip's barely in the media now, and now Skip's having a real hard time because Tom Brady just came out and called LeBron the GOAT. So now what's Skip going to do? But let's get into it. The shit that they say, man, I need a little bit of theme music to go behind this. Start having a little intro with some theme music. So Stephen A. can make this list every day. And that's just the reality of it. But I want to say something that was egregious. I could do the entire ESPN NBA halftime, which was, let's put Bob Myers, who has reasonable and rational opinions, and you can tell actually had to do the job of grading and evaluating talent and build a team and, actual basketball front office things. Let's put him next to Kendrick Perkins and Stephen A., who are just going to yell obscenities throughout the entirety of halftime and say, you know what, so-and-so didn't play well enough. Like, that's all they look for, guys. They look at a box score, and they just want to go, who struggled more? You just pick up paper and go, you know what, who was the worst player in the series? Boom, that's what I'm going to talk about. And that's why that was just, it was atrocious. The entire halftime was atrocious. But his worst take from this last week, it's technically supposed to be from the day before, but this worst take from the last week was that Giannis is disappointing if he only ends up with one championship. Listen, man, I don't know how many times I have to say this or how many times I have to repeat this. Jordan once, there's a really good tweet, by the way, of how difficult it is to win a title throughout the years, right? So Bill Russell won 11 championships. We all kind of acknowledge no one's ever going to win 11 again. It's just not going to happen. Jordan won 6 championships. Okay? That became the new, and is still the new standard for how much success one player, one team can have. Then you have Kobe and Duncan win 5 championships. Okay? So we went from 11 to 6 to 5. Then LeBron and Steph won 4. And now we're in an era where everybody's just winning 1. Which uniquely is making 1 a little less impactful, because when one guy's dominating and he's winning all these championships, it's like, okay, he's clearly the best in the league. He's clearly the best of this generation. He's winning all the titles. Steph, LeBron, Jordan, If everybody starts winning rings, and everybody I'm putting lightly, but if there's far more active players with a championship ring, it kind of dulls that down a little bit. But it then makes such a heightened importance on 2 titles. And it's just, and this guy's, again, the tweet was just basically demonstrating how hard it's been and the new value of winning a championship. But even with that being said, winning 1 title, even all-time guys, that's all they get. Hakeem won 2 in the year and a half Michael didn't play. I know Michael came back at the end of the second one, but it was such an important 2 because Michael wasn't himself in the league or just was out of the league entirely. Giannis had to deal with the end of LeBron's prime, what the Celtics turned into, some battles with Joel Embiid and the Sixers before Embiid's body gave out. Like, now has to deal with, if he were to get to another finals, Jokic, the Thunder, like, guys who win multiple titles are the greatest ever. Again, Duncan 5, Kobe 5, LeBron 4, Steph 4, Mike 6. Giannis just might not be that. And that's okay. That's okay. There's, again, a top 10 list is only going to have 10 guys. Giannis is not going to end up as a top 10 player of all time unless he goes on some crazy run here at the end of his career. And that's fine. Being a top 15 to 20 guy, a 50-point closeout in the finals, one of the greatest two-way players we've ever seen, and a truly unique player stylistically, such as Giannis. He just might not be that. And that's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that version of his career. It's not a disappointment. Don't remember where Giannis started? Where you start matters. He wasn't some prized prospect. He was very raw. Came from another country. He turned himself into one of the most dominant players we've ever seen in the game. He got a title. He has his playoff run. And his team, to some degree out of his control, just Chris Middleton, hurt. Now Dame, hurt. Brook Lopez, just old. Like, some of the stuff is going to be out of his control. And again, that's why you've only got a handful. The Kobes, the Shaqs, the Duncans, the LeBrons, the Jordans, like the Magics, the Birds. Like, I don't know how many times I have to say this. Like, it's okay to not be them. You could still be an all-time great player and not be exactly them. So this 1 title is disappointing. Like, get over yourself, Stephen A. Please. Oh, man. And really quick here before we had to break, got Jrue Holiday was traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. The Celtics traded him for Anthony Simons and 2 first-round picks. Listen, the Blazers are probably going to buy Jrue Holiday out. Now, there's a couple scenarios in which I think Jrue Holiday would be tough. I think Jrue Holiday would be tough on the Magic. I think Jrue Holiday potentially, if he wants to go to the Rockets, if Ime really doesn't want to play Shepherd because of the lack of defense, I think that could work. But Jrue is going to be, Jrue still think has 1 to 2 years left of being a really impactful player. And so, again, you go to a team that's already established, is already going to be on their way to the playoffs and potentially going far in the playoffs. Jrue would be a great addition. But this is the reality of the second apron. Look, the opportunities, and this is another thing that's going to make it so hard to repeat or to win multiple titles in this era, is the Celtics and Thunder fans. I know you don't want to hear this, but this is coming for you next. Trust me, this is coming for you next. The Celtics had everything to be the next team. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Holiday, Porzingis, like they were just there. They were Derek White, Pritchard. But the more you have to pay these guys, in the Celtics case, 2 Supermax guys, then you got to pay 3 high-quality role players maxes. Then you got to play Pritchard, who's now got a 6th man of the year, so he's going to be eligible for X amount of money. These are what is going to tear teams apart because teams and owners, no matter how rich, the Celtics just sold for $6 billion to a very wealthy ownership group. They're not going to want to pay these. Again, we just saw Luka Doncic get traded because a new wealthy owner said, I don't want to be in a position where I have to pay Luka Doncic $70 million a year. The teams that we've seen since the second apron be willing to pay are the teams that just, they expect a championship. And they're only willing to do it for a year or two. The Warriors regime was only willing to pay all the incredibly high luxury tax because they were basically guaranteed to go to the finals for 5 straight years. After that, they don't want to pay that anymore. Yeah, they'll pay Steph, Clay, Draymond, Durant when they know, okay, this guarantees us a trip to the finals. That's X amount of home revenue. But it also reflects and kicks back on the fans. Look how expensive Warrior tickets were. Because this team was paying so much to put that specific team out on the court. Celtics, new ownership group, a lot of new money, a lot of new wealth, and they don't want to. Porzingis is probably going to be gone. Obviously, now the injury to Tatum is probably accelerating this as well. They might have ran it back for one more year, but now Tatum's injured. I'm not trying to pay Jrue Holiday this amount of money. I'm not trying to pay Porzingis this amount of money. I've already got to pay Tatum and Brown, and if you believe some of the rumors and reports, Brown is also on the trading block. Teams are already throwing crazy offers, and the Celtics may or may not consider trading him, depending on how they feel about, are you really worth, without Jason Tatum for a full year, paying you this 50, 60 plus $1 million. So this second apron is going to make it incredibly, incredibly tough to repeat, and I haven't fully made up my mind on if I think that is good or bad for the sport, but trading off Jrue Holiday, the Knicks are also going to be in a similar position where I think you're going to see one of their wings get traded for a younger player. I know there's talks about trading Cat. I wouldn't personally trade Cat, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they did it. The second apron, it is going to be very expensive to have a complete basketball team. It just is. So when you get these moments, you better hope. OKC, you're about to pay J-Dub. You're about Chet Holmgren. Okay, then can you also afford Lou Dort and Alex Caruso and Walker off the bench? There's going to be X amount of guys who are just going to lose their jobs in their spots because it's expensive, especially if you have SGA winning an MVP, which means you got to pay him the Supermax, especially if you have J-Dub, who's an all-NBA guy now, and you got to have to pay the Supermax. When you have to pay Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, who are all NBA guys, you got to pay them the Supermax. We're just going to see it's going to be harder and harder to justify yourself as a Supermax $70 million a year guy, and then to have any kind of consistent help or team around you with how the current second apron is going. So Jrue Holiday, clearly still a really good player. I think can clearly still help a handful of teams, but it's going to be tough the longer we get into this, second apron in this new version of the NBA and how you're going to have to field a roster together. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. Tyrese Halliburton, who is a guy who I was never super high on or super crazy about, even when about 2 years ago he started to build up a lot of steam and momentum because of the 2010 games. Look, I'm wrong. If you want to go to pure basketball, right? There's been a lot of talk this season or this postseason on the internet about we're back in the too big era of basketball. And I've called all these people stupid because that's just basketball. Power forward and center have existed forever. Because we've had LeBron and Steph and this Warriors run, we have felt like, oh, everyone can play positionless basketball. Well, not everyone has LeBron James and Steph Curry and Draymond Green. So no, everyone can't play positionless basketball. Point guards, especially the old school point guard of let me run an offense. Let me get my guys into position. I know we love the scoring point guards. We love Ja. We love Russ. We love these guys who can get you 20 plus, 25 plus a night. Tyrese Halliburton is a true point guard. And as someone who grew up being such a big fan of Chris Paul, it is a disservice to him, and I'll say it, stupid on my part, for not ever acknowledging him or giving him the proper credit he deserved. And with that, we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. So, someone to go to before we start the second hour. A little bit of baseball talk here. The Tampa Bay Rays are the best team in baseball. Now, look, I know Giants fans and Padre fans are going to complain about that. But look at what the Rays have done the last month and a half. Look at the way they've been playing and look at their current set of not just how well they're playing, but look at the talent they are currently playing with. Now, I've said, anyone knows me, the Rays are the best run organization in sports. They've been that way for the better part of 15 years. The Rays essentially accomplish everything they've done, multiple World Series appearances, multiple times winning the AL East, multiple times making the playoffs over these last 15 years, ran with the budget of old gum, potato chips, and whatever you find on the street that people are just giving away. They are the, when you go on, if you ever gone on OfferUp, there's the for free section. That's what the Rays do. They go and they find the for free stuff, and they bring it back into their home, and they dress it up really nice, and they make it look cool, and they turn themselves into a nice little apartment. They have nowhere near the resources that the Yankees have had historically, the Red Sox have had, the Giants, the Dodgers, etc. And they keep winning. They keep putting talent on the field. It's amazing organizationally what they do. The chance here, though, is this is maybe even Evan Longoria just had his number retired a week or two ago, and he is still the best Ray of all time and was probably a part of the most talented when they had him, David Price, Carlos Pena, James Shields, Fernando Rodney, I think was also part of those teams. Like, when they had all those guys, that was the most talented Rays teams ever. There was a year, almost twice, they almost won 100 games. This Rays team is probably even more talented. And they don't even have their ace currently pitching for them. Shane McClanahan is still not pitched this year. But Junior Caminero, who's 19, go look at what he's doing. Or 21, I'm sorry. Junior Caminero, look what he's doing. Look what Aranda's doing. Walls. They have Chandler Simpson, who's going to be coming back up to the big leagues, who's probably the fastest man in baseball already. Like, the entirety of their roster, the talent is just amazing. And pitching, they always do it. And Kevin Cash is one of the best managers in baseball. Again, they are doing this with, again, it's the free offer-up section. They just don't have a lot of resources to invest into the team. But they might actually sell. They are in talks to be sold to another ownership group. And the theory here is that whoever buys them is actually going to invest in the team. Now, MLB owners for years just kind of left the ownership alone. It was like, whatever, they weren't really affecting their pockets until they started spending so less that when they do these revenue sharing, the other owners started looking around and going, oh, he's making a lot of money off of us because he's not putting it into his players when he clearly has guys he could pay. He's not even putting it into the stadium. That was like the final straw for MLB, is that the Rays were supposed to build a new stadium and ownership was cheap and didn't want to put extra amount of money behind it and put it on the city. And then just it all blew up, and now basically Major League Baseball has done a very hard nudge, really hard incentivize, hey, please get rid of the team. You're not doing what we're asking, et cetera, et cetera. And so because of that, this sale, if you sell them now to somebody who's going to invest, and maybe they move out of Tropicana, which is a possibility, but still staying in the region or area, is you're going to have Caminero, who you're going to be able to sign, Yandy Diaz, Aranda, McClanahan. Like, there's guys, Ryan Pepio, who you got from the Dodgers, who, go look at Ryan Pepio versus Tyler Glasnow since they got traded. And I like Tyler a lot. I'm not trying to shit on Tyler. Tyler was a great Ray. It's just, this has always been one of the cooler stories in sports to watch because of how far they got with how little they had to spend and how little resources they had. So shout out to Tampa, man. Tampa has done an amazing job. It's an incredible to watch. And I've always loved this process of what they put out on the field and continuing to do that. They went just over the last week and a half. The Mets, who were the best team in the NL at the time, they went and spanked them. The Tigers, who were the best team in the AL, they went and spanked them. Swept the Mets 1, 2 out of 3 versus the Tigers. Like, this is currently the best team in baseball, and they're competing with the Dodgers and Padres. Look how much the Dodgers and Padres spend on their roster versus look at how much Tampa spends on theirs. Just saying. That's why they're the most interesting and they're the best run team in sports. And that's when this all went to hell, is because the Dodgers put themselves in this next level position because they went and took the Rays president of baseball. I was just basketball president of baseball operations, Andrew Friedman. Just saying. And the Cubs took the Rays manager, Joe Madden, won a World Series. Listen, man. Best run organization in sports. We will be back for hour 2. This is HardFoul Radio. And we are back for hour 2. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody as always. So, it's Tuesday, which is our normally our time we're gonna do our way too early power rankings. I think I said MBR yesterday. The bar is on Thursdays, but I'm gonna kind of talk about this for the way too early power rankings. I'm gonna do it slightly different today. So the Vegas odds came out, and the Thunder are prohibitive favorites. It's like plus 230 to win the title right now. Followed by the Cavs, the Knicks, the Wolves are in there. Like Vegas just basically said, "Hey, look, and the Rockets are in there as well because the KD trade." The Thunder are prohibitively the favorites, and I just want to keep erring on the side of caution. And I know everyone's probably sick of this at this point. The Thunder being the best team in the league, while there's a chance, there's also a really good chance. I would tell you their odds, despite what Vegas says, are just as good, that they are not nearly as good as this team versus them being overwhelmingly the favorite over the field, right? If I were to say your top 5 teams, just off the top of your head, just use this as like a mental practice as you're listening. Okay, you're going to go best teams in the league. Okay, Thunder obviously had to make it the defending champs. The Rockets, they just got KD. They were the 2 seed last year. Then who's number 3? The Cavs, who we're not sure because they've never made it past the second round. Can Donovan Mitchell get you that far? Is it the Knicks, who just fired their head coach? Is it Giannis and whatever's left of the Bucks? It's not Philly. Philly's got Embiid, who knows how many games he's going to play. Paul George, who knows how many games he's going to play. Tyrese Maxey's really good, but if those guys aren't there, can he carry you? The Celtics are obviously injured. No Jason Tatum. They just gave away Jrue. Probably going to be trading away Kristaps again. Like, when we think of this, and this is the bigger part of why we will rank these teams, but who is the Thunder? I'm going to give the Thunder some love because I know Thunder fans are just shitting on them. The reality is, the more you talk about this and say it out loud, is who's going to stop the Thunder? Because it might be a situation where the rest of the league just can't, it's not so much can't keep up, but just aren't in the position. Like, again, the Knicks don't have a head coach. The Cavs have historical playoff issues. The Rockets are still going to be young, even though they have Kevin Durant. The Timberwolves, let's see what they do with the Timberwolves. Are supposedly trying to get rid of Gobert. He's already been leaked as far as he was in a trade package for Durant, so we'll see how that plays out. Julius Randle's going to be another year older. Yes, I think the world of Anthony Edwards, and a lot of people do, but is Anthony Edwards good enough by himself to get to the Thunder? Probably not. So there's a lot for the Thunder that are going to be positive for them, but I don't know, man. It's gonna be weird. So it's like I didn't want to do just a 1 through 10. I know this is way too early, and the Thunder are gonna dominate the way too early stuff. They're just going to. Because we know what that team is going to look like at least next year. Again, if there's the Thunder have to start making tough decisions, whether it's with payroll, luxury tax, who to pay, who not to pay, that stuff is going to be afterwards. So the pressure is also going to be on the Thunder that, hey, if there's ever going to be an opportunity, like you only get so many opportunities in life to take advantage of a great situation. You need to take advantage of this situation. You're the defending champs. Everybody else is coming back either injured or roster not nearly as good as yours and no real way to improve. This is your opportunity. You need to take it. You need to take the utmost advantage of it. So, again, in the way too early rankings, it's like you got to go Thunder 1. The East right now, I would say Cavs 2, but that's not really a confident 2. The Knicks would be in there. The Rockets, I'd say, are top 5. And I just put Jokic in the top 5 because it's just the respect of he's really the only guy. Him and Halliburton are really the only guys that gave them problems throughout this entire run, and the Pacers are just a better team than the Nuggets. But if the Nuggets can potentially trade MPJ to get a good piece or two, role player, guy who can hit threes, guy who can make some jump shots, then there's a chance the Nuggets get back into contention, but it's going to be tough regardless. So, man, look, the Thunder are going to dominate every way to early power ranking. There's no clear team coming out of the East. There's a lot of turmoil going on in the NBA right now, and it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. It is Tuesday, so y'all know what time it is. Tony is here to join us. Excuse me. How we feeling today, man?
Hot. It's hot out. Beginning of the week, so I got to deal with the heat for more days than I'd like to. But we move.
Amen. Amen. See, the heat is like this is the one time of the year where it's like I'm from California, so like heat is definitely. Y'all fuck me up when you start talking about like how cold it gets in December, and like that shit makes me just want to like crawl in a corner. But right now, I think right now it's like 80 something.
I might take a life for it to be 50 degrees right now.
Oh man. So I do want to talk the WNBA today with you. I do have to though. Obviously, from the time this goes live, finals ended 2 days ago. I've kind of spent the last 2 days going like there is things that I absolutely want to compliment this Thunder team on. There's things they did that are amazing, while at the same time going, let's not just call this like the next dynasty yet, because we've been doing this for the last several NBA champions. And to me, one of the biggest points I've put on here is like, it's why the top 10 in the NBA, it's maybe the one defining factor is it's like Duncan's got 5 rings, Kobe's got 5 rings, Magic, Bird, like it's these guys who start stacking multiple titles, and that's what makes that top 10 air so rarefied. So to act like anyone just because they're on a great team or they win a title is going to start piling up rings, I think is moving on a little too fast. I also think, so A, to your thoughts on the Thunder and how they did this year and how you feel about them going forward, and B, I also made a case that this is maybe the first time that the losing team potentially has a chance to be just as memorable as the champion, or at least the first time since when AI did it. Like, we remember, and like that's a big moment in NBA history, AI dropping 40 in game 1. Because no one, and it was like, we celebrated that even though they lost. And so it was something special about what Indiana did, and I was wrong on them from day one. I've said that a bunch already. But, like, how do you feel, it's a two-parter, how do you feel about the Thunder, what they just accomplished, them going forward, and the thoughts that Indiana could be just as remembered, or this Indiana team, even though they lost the finals?
I think Indiana, I think to a lot of people, Indiana will be more remembered than as far as being the losing team than the Thunder will the winning team. I think this was just a special run, them being able to push it to 7 and not having Halliburton there. So there's going to always be that there for a lot of people. I think that for the Thunder, this is one of their all-time seasons. You went over 80, you went 82, 83 plus games. You're pretty much the best team in the league, wire to wire. Have the MVP, have a scoring champ, Finals MVP. You are just a dominant team. You're up there with some of the best defenses in the modern era. Um, and for them, just just culminating all of this in a game 7 at home on your floor, to just wrap this whole thing up with a title is special. And I think that they should be very proud of that. And they are, for me, going to be the prohibitive favorites for a while. I'm not going to say that they'll win every championship or that they're going to just run off a bunch of rings and stuff like that, but it's hard for me to see another team be the favorites over them, at least as things stand today. Obviously, moves happen, trades happen, guys get hurt, blah, blah, blah. But as everything stands today, they're the prohibitive favorites for the foreseeable future in my eyes. But yeah, I think for the Pacers, man, you are going to go down as being remembered for this run all the time, and people will keep you. The fact of the matter is, this isn't an asterisk on the Thunder's championship, but the fact of the matter is, the Pacers didn't get beat. They lost. Not having Halliburton there, they just did not have enough and they lost the game. The Pacers did not get beat.
That's valid. That's valid. It's not. It's crazy because again, it's really hard to be memorable as the team that loses. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that we just don't remember as fans throughout history, nor do I really think we should. Again, it's like the foul stuff. You might, in the moment of watching the game, be like, "Damn, that foul sucked. That foul sucked," but you don't really remember fouls long term as a part of someone's championship run. Uh, Unless you're exactly a Saints fan when like the Rams corner just blew up dude like 5 yards before the ball got there, but neither here nor there. I want to talk WNBA with you. So there's obviously a bunch of different stuff that's been said about Caitlyn. There's narratively, some of it is people trying to push a certain narrative. There's two things that I'm convinced of though with her. A, she is absolutely good for the sport, especially with the idea that there is potentially a rookie currently playing in Paige who's going to also be on her level. Juju's going to be here in another couple years. Like, there's other superstardom talent coming down the road along with what already exists in the league. So, A, I think she is good for that. B, she might already be one of the 5 best players in the sport. Like, it's kind of crazy how, like, she started slow, and part of that is because when they finished the college season to getting drafted and playing immediately, and she didn't really get a break until the Olympics last year. But you can now see, besides the injury, like, she is out there kicking ass and taking names, man. And it's, take the narrative stuff aside, like, it's just fun to watch. Your thoughts on Caitlyn? Obviously, some of the stuff the media tries to out for, and I guess just the opinion of, is she good for women's basketball, and how good is she already in the standings of, like, how great is she already amongst the current contemporaries in the league?
Um, she's clearly great for the game. I mean, that's an obvious thing. Just when you look at when you look at how she plays, you look at the numbers she's able to put up and things like that. Like, she's clearly good for the game. I think that when you're comparing her to some of the other players around the league that are the stars like Asia or Nafisa or Stewie, women like that. I think that you can make those arguments to put her there. The numbers back it up, and she contributes to winning when you talk about the team.
Mm-hmm.
And just her ability to make people around her better and how she is able to control the flow of the game. She can score at every level. She's one of the best passers in the league. Obviously, she's one of the best shooters in the league. And yeah, it's like you can make that argument for her to be up there with some of the best. Obviously there's going to be people that she's competing with when we talk about who are the top players in this league, but her name is squarely there for sure.
What's wrong with the? All right, let me let's not start on a negative note. Let me ask, in your opinion, right now, who is the best team in the league?
The best team in the W right now, if you ask me, is probably I'd say Minnesota.
That's what I was curious on where you stood on that. Whereas Minnesota right now has the best record. They look like they're playing the best. The Liberty kind of get that. We do this a lot of time in sports where it's like, if you're close to the best record and you're the defending champ, a lot of people will kind of give you the edge. Like, we've seen this with the Chiefs a bunch. Whereas if they don't have the exact best record, it's like, okay, they're still the Chiefs. I guess, where are you on that line with Minnesota and New York? Is how
Um,
much do you give the Liberty for winning the previous championship?
I mean, they're still the reigning champs, and they have the second best record in the league. So I mean, they're right there. Um, they essentially they essentially ran it back, just added Natasha Cloud to swap out Benaja, who is out for the season, and they have not missed a step. Like, Stewie is still one of the 3 best players in the world when we talk about women's basketball. Sabrina's arguably the best point guard in the game. So they are they are right there. They are right there, and they're most likely going to be in the championship game again, possibly against Minnesota again. Phoenix will have something to say about that. Seattle. Atlanta's playing really good with Brittany Griner this year, and Ryan Howard having these pieces around to help her out is big once we get into the later part of the season. But yeah, Minnesota and New York, they are right there neck and neck on the collision course for sure.
Is even as things currently stand, is Asia still, in your opinion? You were very clear and adamant, even as all the things going on last year was like it was crazy to me to think that. And again, I'm newer to the fandom of women's basketball, just plain and
Hmm.
simply. But it was like as all like the Caitlyn and Angel stuff, and again, some of that stuff is good because the more names that people know from your sport, that is inevitably a good thing. As long as for the correct reasons, obviously, that is inevitably going to be a good thing. But it was wild that Asia was putting up these kind of numbers, the numbers she was putting up, and was totally overlooked for two rookies. Is Asia, in your opinion, still clearly the best player in the game? And does she keep that if the Aces don't win at that? Obviously, they had the back-to-back. But if they don't win at that level, does she hold that title in your mind?
She's still the best player in the WNBA to me. Um, I actually think Asia Wilson is the best bet. I think she's the second best basketball player, man or woman in the world, actually.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I do think she's still the best player in the league. She's coming back from the concussion. The numbers are obviously down a bit from last year, but last year was just an all-time special season, so it's going to be tough to follow that regardless. But to your question of does she still get that if the Aces aren't winning? I think that it's more debatable for sure when you think about Nafisa and where she has Minnesota. And you could argue she was the MVP last year. You could look at what Stewie's doing up in New York, and you could argue I don't think you can argue it. She's going to be in the MVP conversation when it's all said and done this year. But for Asia coming back, and she does so much for that team. When you talk about she's the defensive anchor, she's the leading scorer. She just does so much for that team who is not the deepest team necessarily when you look at that Aces squad, but they are trying to get things going on a right way. They had the comeback win against the Fever on Sunday, I think that was. Or Saturday. I think it was Saturday. They had the comeback win against the Fever, so they're trying to get things turned around. Not having her for a few games definitely was tough there. They didn't come out the gates playing super great anyway, but I think just kind of getting things going with Jackie and getting things going with Chelsea and having Jewel come in to replace Kelsey, I think they'll start to get things rolling. But as it pertains to Asia, I do think she's still the best player in the world until somebody firmly takes that from her.
No, that's super valid. Um, Last before we get you out of here, and this is more of a concept kind of question, is there's obviously been exponential growth over the last 2 years. And again, there's going to be even more like as far as like Paige playing consistently healthy. When Juju enters the league here in a couple years, because she's not going to play it all this year, correct? Because she tore
I
her.
don't know. I would imagine she doesn't because of obviously the risk and just where she's at financially. She doesn't really have to, but I can't
Mhm.
say she won't. I don't, I'm sure she wants to be out there and if not for the injury, she'd be looking at being able to leave early. She'd be looking at the number one pick for sure. And they would have been, competing for a national championship, but with her being injured, I can't say though.
And I'm actually going to pivot my last question here because it just reminded me when I said her. So in baseball, we all kind of acknowledge like Tommy John is just a thing. There is going to be 3 to 5 to 6 pitchers a year, and it's usually starters. It's usually guys who are going deep into games, aces of rotations, who get a Tommy John surgery that blows up the whole year. ACLs are starting to trend that way, and I made this point earlier today of we're starting to get into ACL tears are turning into the Tommy Johns of baseball, but I don't know if how the NBA is going to handle that because there is as impactful as it would be like if and knock on wood, I'm not trying to put this somebody's name, but like insert team's ace if they were to get Tommy John surgery and they were out for the season tomorrow, because there's more guys on a baseball roster, and it's almost ingrained in the culture of like, hey, we are expecting a guy to miss X amount of time, or they can only pitch so many innings. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think the NBA can handle that as much. So it's like, even just in the East, it's like Halliburton's now going to be out all next year with an ACL. Tatum's going to be out all next year with an ACL. Dame's out there all with an ACL.
You mean torn Achilles?
Achilles, yeah. I'm sorry. With an Achilles tear, those popping up more and more and more, and it's hard to prevent them because the motion of a basketball player when you're in a defensive stance, that is going to irritate your calf. It's not a normal human motion outside of playing basketball. What would be, should that be something like the NBA is nervous, or do you think it's just something you can't really avoid? Again, it's kind of already ingrained in baseball culture, but it's definitely not in basketball.
No, you can't avoid that. And these situations are very unique, I would say, just because when you look at Dame's situation, Dame essentially he didn't play for the last few months of the season, and then was just kind of like I don't want to say thrown out there, but he shouldn't have been playing. He
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have been playing, especially not at a high level like that against a team like that. You look at Jason Tatum he just played so much basketball. Like it was only amount of time before something like that happened. You just hate that it had to happen at all, but it was
Mm-hmm.
essentially inevitable when you look at all the basketball he's played nonstop. You know, he's made the finals. He made the finals two of the previous three seasons before this year. He's consistently in every Eastern Conference Finals pretty much since he's been drafted, outside of maybe 3 seasons. Um, Counting this season, I think maybe 3 or 4 years since 2018, he hasn't been in at least the Eastern Conference Finals. On top of two Olympic runs. He just played so much ball, and with Halliburton, it was just, that's a situation where he knew the risk. It was just, the calf situation, and it weakens everything else from there. And it just happened, and that sucks. But that something like that was always a risk to happen when you're dealing with the injury he was dealing with. So I don't think that we're looking at a situation where this is the new Tommy John of the NBA. But also in situations where that does happen, you can't really work around that for guys not to have those injuries. It's just the risk you are taking when you're playing a lot of basketball or when you're playing a certain type of basketball.
Yeah, that's valid. I think it is. The only thing I can see them kind of reacting to is you're going to see teams. You're going to see teams. Guys are still going to want to get awards, but you're going to start seeing teams manually take their guys down to 65 games. Load management already exists, but I think they're going to as close as to 65 as possible. Like, you still want your guys to get their All NBAs, you still want them to get their MVPs because there's money involved in that for them. But if the era of playing 82 games, besides exactly Mikal Bridges, congrats, like, wasn't over, this was the it's like it's over. You guys aren't going to want to risk it because the ability and the chance to win a championship, and to the Tyrese point, that's why he went out and played. Like, he doesn't know if he's ever going to get back here. So fuck what could happen in the future. He wants to play. He wants to have a chance to win a championship with his team. So it's obviously super unfortunate, but that's the mind of an athlete. Appreciate you as always, man. Don't forget, you can go check Tony out. Group Chat Podcast. New episode just dropped today. Hear him every Sunday. I'll talk to you next week, man.
Peace.
and some guys there on defense who are absent. So a theme I always talk about is optimism. I said this before the break. When you're a sports team, giving optimism, giving hope to your... Oops, there we go. We are back. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing there. So we are back. Appreciate everybody for joining. Appreciate Tony for stopping through, giving some insight on the WNBA. It's one of the things that I try to do when I bring Tony on, and this is something that I think a lot more people should do just in their regular life, is it's okay to have people that are around you that are smarter than you, that know more than you, or at least know different things than you. I'm never going to come on here and go, let me give you a deep NASCAR breakdown. I don't know shit about NASCAR. And so it would be disingenuous to attempt to give you some kind of recap or some kind of breakdown about something that I just don't know anything about. And while I have become a fan and a recent fan of the WNBA, I just simply don't know enough about it to really give you an informative opinion to the level that I wish I could. And we do this a lot of time in sports where everybody wants to give their opinion, everybody wants to give their take, when in reality, maybe you just don't know enough. So bring on the expert. Right now, there's soccer going on and how the U.S. soccer team is performing. I'm not the guy that's going to be able to give you your soccer takes. So if you're looking for soccer takes, you're going to have to go somewhere else. If you're looking for hockey takes, you're going to have to go somewhere else. It is okay if you don't know certain things to just not speak on them, which is why. I think this is what the WNBA has a lot of struggle with, is that because of Caitlyn Clark's incredible popularity, and it's undeniable. She is an incredibly popular player. The stats show it, the jersey sales, the attendance, all that stuff shows it. She's just incredibly popular. So she has been the WNBA's supernova, for lack of a better term. And so that means people want to talk about her. But a lot of the people talking about her really don't know what they're talking about. Again, she's great for the game. She's an amazing scorer, shooter, passer. And guess what? Everybody could tell you that, not just me. She's amazing. But as I said to Tony, A'ja Wilson won back-to-back finals, was an MVP, and all of last year was dominated by two rookies not liking each other, and that was the storyline of the WNBA. And that was because most people that would discuss the WNBA could name about 5 players. They got to Caitlyn Clark, Angel Reese, A'ja Wilson, maybe Kelsey Plum, and they started running really low on names. And we had these people, because they are highly paid. Like, there was the ESPN leak the other day of, like, potential first take topics. And you just kind of sit there and laugh at them. And you're like, really? This is what we're doing? Like, I get it. You're paying Stephen A. all this money, and so you got to get up there and you got to have him talk. But if he's just not qualified to talk, it is so okay if you're not qualified or you don't know. And qualified only matters when it comes to being paid. If you just don't know about something, just shut up. I don't know about this. Sorry, couldn't tell you. I don't know enough about hockey to give you an informed opinion, so I'm not going to talk about hockey. I don't know enough about tennis to give you an informed opinion, so I'm not going to talk about tennis. Matt, love him. He was talking about Coco Gauff and her amazing performance at the French Open, and I'm like, I vaguely know. I know the name. I know the name of the tournament, and I was like, that's dope. I'm not going to be sitting here giving you Coco Gauff breakdowns. I don't know enough, and I wish. This is just kind of me pleading here. It's 5:30 in the morning. This is me making me pleading. If you don't know something, just shut up. It's okay. If you don't have insight or knowledge, and again, this is the WNBA's problem. A lot of people, and I'm sorry, Angel Reese would have been one of those names, obviously, for last year. But it's like, a lot of people post Caitlyn and Angel Reese, they're like, yeah, we don't know enough. Even Joy Taylor's going on a podcast run right now, right? And I just saw this. She just did, she's going on, she's talking all these different podcasts, New Roy and Mall, Joe Budden are the two I just saw recently. And she has this opinion that we would not talk about Caitlyn Clark if Angel Reese didn't exist, or wouldn't talk about her on this level. And I just vehemently disagree. A, because as they are in their current stages of their career, yes, that moment in college was huge. At this stage in their career, they're two different levels of players. Angel is really good. Caitlyn is already in the great, possibly one of the best players in the league status. So if the idea, but because I don't think Joy Taylor knows that much about women's basketball, the only thing she really has to go off of is, oh, well, we're talking about Caitlyn and Angel, and, I don't think we would talk about Caitlyn as much as for Angel. Like, no. You don't, rivalries are great for sports. Storylines are great for sports. You need villains, you need heroes, all that stuff. She kind of talks about this too, and she's 1,000% right in that regard. But not everything needs a rivalry. Steph Curry, when he first started to become Steph, there wasn't a rivalry. It eventually became one with LeBron because they kept going and meeting each other in the finals. But there wasn't a rivalry when Steph took off. He was just this new style of player that we had never seen, which was he was consistently hitting 3 after 3 after 3. He scored 50 on the Knicks. The Warriors are becoming something of a national brand, not just something that we put on the late night game on Thursday on TNT. Yeah, I was actually up watching those games. I was watching Suns Warriors when it was Don Nelson and Mike D'Antoni, and they were just trying to see who was the first to get it 150. No defense, super optional. And so I just think right now the WNBA's biggest problem is that just nobody really knows. And I don't even know enough, which is why when I do come and talk about, like, I sit there and will research. I watch way more games than I used to, but I actually am sitting there and I'm researching stuff and I'm looking into things and I'm trying to actually figure out, hey, is this relevant? Is this just correct? Can we just go back to that part of sports reporting? Is this just actually true? Because a lot of people now, you just turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, and boom, you can just say stuff. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. Especially if you're already a part of a pre-existing platform. If you're already a part of ESPN, if you're already a part of FS1. This is one of the reasons why it's such a big deal to me for the Who Said That Shit. It's not just to be mean-spirited or make fun of people who say wrong things. Everybody's going to say something wrong. That's human nature. We're all going to say something wrong. We're all going to say something stupid. But why it's such a big deal is because the correcting of that to getting us back to a point of prime ESPN, in my opinion, when you had Chris Berman, when you had Stuart Scott, rest in peace, you had like these guys who were Steve Levy, these guys who were just, they were sports nerds. And they're just a bunch of sports nerds who put on suits and just love to break down the game. They weren't just looking for storylines. Yes, storylines are fantastic and how you keep the business going. But there was something almost educational to the way they used to do it. That's what I fell in love with. There was a way they could tell you about, the history of the sport, why it's so impressive what this guy's doing. The Cal Rayleigh story in baseball right now would have been an introduction to, he's doing stuff that hasn't happened since Johnny Bench. Old ESPN would have turned this into a Johnny Bench learning hour. For all the kids that never watched Johnny Bench because they were too young, they could have sat there and taught you all about the Big Red Machine and done these comparisons, and it would have been this actual storyline. Like, they could teach you. Now the storyline is going to be Cal Rayleigh's having an amazing season. Man, he's going to be I don't think he's going to have a chance to an MVP because he's not the market and he's not the level of star that Aaron Judge is. But now they're just going to turn it into, well, he was great, but are the Mariners even going to make the playoffs? What if they don't do well in the playoffs? And it again, same thing I said with how the NBA Finals went down. They're just looking at this piece of paper and going, all right, who has the worst box score? Because I'm just going to rip that guy. They're not looking for, again, there's so many ways to teach people if you know what you're talking about. Stephen A goes viral for baseball topics about once a year, and it's on some of the dumbest things you've ever heard. Ohtani can't be a superstar or the face of Major League Baseball because he don't speak English. Remember how dumb that was? Remember him trying to diminish the player that Mike Trout was? And again, Mike Trout has legitimate injury concerns and issues, and Mike Trout was on this greatest of all time path and then got super derailed by injuries. But anybody who watched baseball in the 2000s, in the 2010s, knows how just amazing Mike Trout was. As great as Judge and as great as Shohei is right now, Shohei you might give he plays two positions, and I've still really never figured out how to discern that in my head of like, okay, is if you being all-star, all MLB player at two positions, is that better than being clearly the best player in the game at one? I'll never really know in my mind how I feel about that. It kind of goes back and forth each day. But people that saw Mike Trout know Mike Trout. It's no different than why did Barry Bonds, who's never going to get in the Hall of Fame with the voters, but why is he still so magnetic to fans? Is because we watched it. We saw it. We got to experience it. And then we got to learn, okay, Bonds is doing this, the first since such and such. That is a way, bring in your history. This is a really long rant. I didn't think I was going here. It's okay to bring in your sports history. I might reuse this again for tomorrow. Like there's a lot here. There's for hip hop fans, Jim Jones has been going the last week and he talked about, oh, I'm better than Nas. My son couldn't even name a Nas record. That's your fault. That's 1,000% your fault. The idea that it's cool to not know the history of what you do or your sport or your activity. Again, Cal Rayleigh should be an invitation to learn about Johnny Bench, the Big Red Machine, baseball in the 70s. Aaron Judge to Brian Kenny did an amazing breakdown on MLB Network on how he stands up to Gehrig and Mantle and Ruth. You throw that same topic on ESPN, they're just going to tell you, well, I don't care about Babe Ruth because he couldn't hit a baseball over 90 miles an hour, which is probably true. But it doesn't take away that Babe Ruth is a part of baseball history. It doesn't take away that DiMaggio and Gehrig are a part of baseball history. Teach somebody something, but you can only teach somebody something if you actually know something. And when these guys go on TV or go on a podcast and they just don't really know anything and they just want to say words because this sounds cool or this sounds kind of correct. I used to know someone who a doctor basically identified the way they talked as a parrot style of speaking where they just hear something and they repeat it. And that's a lot of people, especially if you go through social media. That's a lot of people. Oh, I heard this one time, so I'm going to say that because it sounds like it might be correct. I had someone try to tell me about taxes. This person had been on unemployment for over a decade. What do you know about taxes? You just heard someone make a comment about taxes, and so then you decided, oh, I'm now going to repeat this. Let's learn something. Let's be smarter. Let's be better because, oh, man, look. This is HardFoul Radio. I'll be back to close this out in a few minutes. I just drove myself crazy. Oh man, we are back to close it out here on HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for being with me here for these 2 hours. I just was seeing something during the break, and it was Mina Kimes and Pablo Torre were talking about can writing basically in sports, is it dead? Meaning we're if you grew up around the same time I did, around my age, there was all these different articles and sports writers, and they were discussing what they did, what was going on. And they bring up two really good points. And I can't stay here very long, obviously, about to head out. But they bring up the fun point that is like, people just don't read anymore. And that's obviously going to be a factor. In some of these towards the back end, I almost use these to like preview myself for tomorrow's show or later shows. And so this is one of those topics that I think I'm going to discuss a little bit more either tomorrow or Thursday. Right? Yeah, today's Tuesday. Yeah, I know what day it is. I'm aware of my surroundings. But then also the idea of like, because of how the internet works and Twitter and links aren't your friend anymore. And for sports writers, that's huge, because you could link an article and, talk about, again, this similar to the rant I just went on. When you could discuss the impact of what some of these players are doing, when you could discuss the novelties in sports nowadays. But links no one's really clicking on links like that. You've got to see either the thumbnail is so huge now it's revolutionized the way people think. I got to be able to see it, and then I want to watch it. People don't want to read. People don't want to spend. I want it all fed to me without the least amount of effort. And that does go against sports writers. And it's going to be tough. I enjoy reading articles, but I am aware that I'm weird. I'm aware that I'm not one of the normal, and you can't make a business off of the things that I like, because it's just not profitable enough. And so I don't know. It was interesting. It made me start thinking. And in that, along with my rant of just the way even ESPN, FS1, some of these guys, like, there's a way you could do this where you could teach people, not just tell people or yell about storylines. I know storylines are important. I know all this stuff, but so is reading and articulating and being able to teach someone. But we can't teach if we don't know shit. That's all I got, guys. With that being said, appreciate everybody as always. Don't forget to go check out the videos on YouTube. Don't forget to go check out Group Chat Podcast. New episode dropped yesterday. Don't forget to check out A&M. New episode also dropped yesterday. Clips coming out. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you listen to podcasts. Appreciate you as always. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that good shit.